The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning. This is Eric Seymour with the National Weather Service in Wakefield. I'm stepping in for Katie today. So we're going to take a look through kind of where we are weather-wise, what we're expecting. I know there's a lot of interest in this weekend. So we'll hit on that. We'll talk a little bit about what we're looking at and kind of some of the issues forecast-wise that we're dealing with. So I'm going to bail out of the briefing to start with. And actually, I just wanted to kind of start us off where we are this morning. It's not quite as cold as we had, I think, initially thought earlier in the week. And with the sun coming out this morning, temperatures are bouncing back up into the lower 20s across most of the state. So we're warming up a little bit, and I know there's still a lot of ice on roadways, things like that. A lot of, especially in the subdivisions, those kind of areas. So driving in those areas is difficult. So if we can get the temperatures to warm up a little bit, that should help DOT a little bit this afternoon, hopefully make a little bit of progress on some of the back roads, things of that nature. So, but it's still cold. So when you look at a scenario of where we would normally be, we're anywhere from 15 to 20 degrees below normal right now. And that's going to persist for the next several days. We do have another shot of kind of a reinforcing shot of cold air, and you can see it up to the north. You look up across portions of the Ohio Valley up in Indiana, Ohio, a lot of single-digit type values right now, and that air is all filtering this way. So I know the forecast is showing us getting a little bit colder, and it's really going to persist for the next 5 to 7 days. So let's get back into the presentation here, and we'll go from there. So the cold air remains in place. That has not changed. Cold weather advisories so far are out for tonight for the northern and western portions of the state. We'll take a look at that graphic in a minute. I do expect that you'll see that expand and cover a larger area as we go through the day today. And confidence is increasing in a system this weekend. So looking at the overall pattern, we do kind of have a weak cold front that's actually moving through. There's no moisture with it, so there was really very little way in the cloud cover today. But as it does, it's just going to provide a reinforcing shot of that colder air as high pressure builds across the area. Could there be a few flurries up and across the extreme northern parts of the area, up in toward Winchester and those areas with this boundary going through? Maybe, but nothing that's going to be significant. We're accumulating. Now, as we go into Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you'll see an area of low pressure beginning to develop along the Gulf Coast, gradually makes its way off the eastern seaboard, and then comes on up the coast. Exactly where that track is will be hugely dependent upon what we end up getting weather-wise. So I will show you something here in a minute to kind of help give you an idea of kind of what we're looking at from a forecast perspective as far as that track goes. So cold weather advisories for tonight. Right now, you're talking really you get up around the capital region, up along the northern parts of the I-81 corridor, a little bit down in Southwest Virginia. Talking with my office, I expect that the areas kind of north of I-64 probably will again be back in a cold weather advisory for tonight. We're still looking at that. I expect a decision probably either later this morning or early this afternoon. You'll see cold weather advisories expanded in that area as well. Again, we're looking at wind chill or temperature values between 0 and -10. Generally, it's going to be wind chill, but that's kind of what we're looking at for those advisories. Now, some of the areas out to the west along the I-81 corridor, Covington down to Wytheville, those areas, the criteria is a little bit colder in that region for seeing those advisories. So it's really more like about -5 to -15 out there. So that may be why you're not seeing the advisories for those cold weather, alert conditions, but it's still going to be cold. And when we look at the wind chill map, you'll see that. So just because there's a headline doesn't mean, hey, it's not going to be cold. It's still going to be cold for everybody. So when you start looking at the temperature values, again, you're seeing, anywhere from single digits in the east to negative values along the I-81 corridor. So it is going to be cold. And really let your attention, after tonight, I want you to kind of let your attention draw out to Friday night, Saturday night. Look how cold it is. So not only do we have potential storm system developing along the coast, but we still got a lot of cold air in place, and that's not really changing. So maybe we start to moderate as we get into early part of next week. But again, it's going to be cold for the foreseeable future. All right, so looking at the weekend storm, and I'm going to escape out of the presentation mode. We'll come back to that in a second. What I wanted to show you, and this is just I'm showing you the GFS model, the American model on the left-hand side, and then on the right-hand side here, let me pull up the. We're actually going to look at the GFS ensemble. Now, the GFS ensemble is basically 30 models. They're tweaked just a little bit differently. Okay, so you've got 30 models that go into that ensemble. So if you're looking to the one on the right on the GFS, what we're seeing, this is Friday afternoon. We're seeing an area of low pressure trying to get itself organized down across the northern ports of the Gulf of Mexico. And the ensemble is there as well. So both of them are fairly well matched at that point. Now, as we go through time, I'm going to jump us ahead about 6 hours, or it's actually about 12 hours. So we get to Saturday morning. You can see that the GFS is trying to figure out where the area of low pressure is going to form. When we look on the ensembles, the ensemble really shows that the area is going to be somewhere off the South Carolina coast. So we're in pretty good agreement in understanding that GFS, the main run, is trying to get itself organized, which area of low pressure is going to form. Now, as we go through the day on Saturday, I'm going to jump this ahead about 24 hours, okay? And we get out to, actually, I'm going to go ahead 12 hours here. We're Saturday afternoon. The ensemble member says, hey, it's going to be, the area of low pressure is going to be somewhere southeast of Hatteras, east of Charleston. And you see the main operation run has multiple centers of low pressure, really trying to still figure out exactly where it's going to form. We're going to go ahead 12 more hours. The ensemble has kind of consolidated, probably a couple 100 miles east of Hatteras, whereas the operation run says, no, the low is going to be literally sitting right over top of Hatteras. So you can see this is where we're having the issues in the forecast from a confidence perspective, is really trying to figure out where that low is. Because if it's back toward the coast, you're going to be bringing snow a lot further inland. The winds are going to be significantly farther inland. Whereas when you look at the ensemble member says, no, it's going to be out closer to the coast. So those are the details and the issues that we're trying to figure out right now. And again, we're just looking at one set of, one really model run. There's, 100 different models out there when we're looking at things. So, but I just wanted to give you some idea of really when we're looking at what the differences are. This track of where the low is going to be is huge as far as where the impacts are. So just kind of keep that in mind. You can pick an individual model and get a specific scenario that you may potentially want, but that may not necessarily be, the best way to do it. That's why we tend to look more at that ensemble data to see where all the models are giving us and where it's going to be. So we take that ensemble data and we come back in, and what we've created here are looking at moderate impacts for snow. The good thing with this system is, with it being off the coast, we're on the northwest side of it, it should be all snow. It should be like last weekend we were dealing with the changeover from snow to sleet, freezing rain, trying to figure out what precip type it's going to be. It's going to be snow. Okay, we do know that. Now, the question is, where's it going to be? So when we look at the probabilistic information on Saturday, which is the left-hand image, really the threats are more down into North Carolina, just starting to spread up into Virginia. Maybe, you got maybe a 20-30% chance of seeing some moderate type snowfall in the southern Piedmont, starting to expand eastward. As we get into Sunday, notice that shifts, and the higher impacts and a fairly large probability, you're starting to get up into the 50 to 70% percentile as far as impacts for a moderate impact. Okay, really you're looking at I-95 corridor east, maybe extending as far back as the southern Piedmont. So really it's the southeastern part of the state that's likely to be impacted based upon all the different things we're seeing with the ensemble guidance, things of that nature. Now, does that mean, when you start getting back toward the I-81 corridor, we can just kind of let our guard down? No, because even with that, you're still talking 20-30% chance of seeing some moderate impacts. And again, where the track of the low ultimately ends up going is going to be that deciding factor. If the low is a little closer to the coast, we could see some of that heavier snow still making its way back to the I-81 corridor. Right now, that's the hardest part of the forecast. Being kind of 4 days out at this point, it's really hard to nail down exactly where that track's going to be. It's going to move in the models over the next several days. hopefully we start to lock in as we get into Friday kind of on where the system's going to go. But again, you're talking about a system that hasn't even formed yet. So really kind of have to, understand that there is still a lot of uncertainty as far as what impacts are going to be, and it's all really based upon what the track of the storm is going to be. All right, so we start looking at probabilities of 3 inches or more of snow. You can see where it kind of targets that southern Piedmont, maybe even a little bit more the southwestern part of the state, and a lot of that is for Saturday. And then Sunday, everything really kind of starts, in based upon what we're thinking right now, transitions toward the coast. So, really you're looking at kind of about a 1 in 3 chance of seeing 3 inches of snow or more in Richmond, much less as you get further north and west. When we go to 6 or 8, again, you can see those higher totals really do start to shift to the coast. So is it out of the question that we could see something on the I-81 corridor? No, but we're talking probably about a 1 in 10 chance at this point. You're looking at, maybe 1 in 5 in Richmond for 6 inches or more, but really you're looking at 2 in 5, even close to, 1 in 2 chance as you get closer to Virginia Beach toward the coast. Even still have a, kind of a 1 in 3 chance, maybe 3 in 10 chance along the coast to see up to 8. So if there's probably going to, like I said, all the probability indications that it's really going to be more of a east of I-95 type of a scenario for this event. But again, it's all track dependent. We're going to have to see where that low, once it forms, how close to the coast does it get? The other factor I think that we're going to be dealing with this system, which is different than the system we had last weekend, is the wind. As this low cranks up, when the images where I was showing you, you could see the black lines, they were lines of constant pressure. Those isobars were getting closer and closer together with time, which really indicates we expect to see some fairly strong winds. So you may get some stronger winds, especially in the west and the higher elevations, the ridge tops, things like that could see some pretty good gusts. But once you get to the southeast, you get into the tidewater, along the bay, that's where you're really going to see some of those significant winds. So you can see in like Accomack, we're getting up, max wind gusts right now. We're thinking, in the low 50s. Could we see a wind gust of 60? Yes, it's not out of the question. Okay, so really that's where we're expecting the heaviest winds to be. And when you start combining the winds with potential snowfall, you've got a lot of other issues that you're potentially dealing with there. So, we could see extremely low wind chills. You could see a lot of reduced visibility, not only from the snow falling, but from the blowing snow. So it could be, Sunday could be extremely impactful on the Virginia portion of the Delmarva down into Norfolk, Virginia Beach, Chesapeake, and those areas. All right, so your last part of your summary here, this is your regional summary. You can kind of see for the kind of what we're looking at for the next, 7 to 8 days. Maybe as we get out to Monday, Tuesday next week, we finally get out of the grip of this Arctic air. We start to see a little bit of a break. Temperature starting to climb finally back up above freezing. Your probabilities for precip, it's Saturday, Sunday. That's really where the bulk of this precipitation is expected. Could be, late Friday night in the far west. Could start to see a little bit of light snow developing, but really it's the Saturday, Sunday time period. That's where this event is really expected. So again, just let me stress that, we're going to be dealing with the cold weather for at least the next 5-6 days. So that's just something we're going to have to deal with. But the system on the weekend, we got to keep our guard up. We got to keep paying attention to the forecast. It is going to change, and it's very track dependent. So while we're confident that something's going to happen, we are going to have a significant storm, and part of the Commonwealth is going to be impacted. We still don't know the details yet because we're still trying to deal with that track. So until we get the track nailed down, those impacts are going to be hard to nail down. So, we'll be doing another briefing tomorrow. Katie will be back with you guys tomorrow at 10. So we will do another live briefing then and have hopefully a little bit more details to provide with the coastal storm. So thank you guys for coming today. And like I said, Katie will be back with you tomorrow. Have a great day.